Good afternoon and welcome. Happy Sunday. This is the JB Show with James Fauntleroy. I am your host for the JB Show. We are live on the Fred Hampton Leftist Network. Today I have my homie, my comrade, my boy, Kamali Rose, once again back on the JB Show. Kamali, how's it going? How you doing? It's good to see you.
Doing well, comrade. Thank you so much for having me on, brother. Always really enjoy our conversations. They're always fruitful and informative, and so I'm excited to be back on again.
Yes, yes. I feel like this is a victory to have you on. Right as we're beginning, thank you everybody. I already see a bunch of people in the chat already. I just want to give my hellos and greetings to all of you. Let me see. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Psychotronic 15. I see. Good to see you. Human Love Solidarity is good to see you again, once again. Austin Jones, nice to have you. Eric Gray,
Welcome,
good to
welcome.
see you again. You are always here. My favorite name, Whipple Dingle Weeble Puffin. I love seeing you here as well. You got your hand up. All right. Radical Leftist Agenda. Looking good, my
Thank you,
friend.
thank you.
Let me see. Troy C. Good to see you as well. And were we the same letter? C to change. All right. Hope we are well. As you
Yes,
can
yes.
see, we in this thing. Um, all right. Everybody is coming in. You guys are pouring in the chat. Let's you
Welcome,
see Quaker
welcome. Hey, what's
Socialist.
up,
How you
Quaker
doing?
Socialist?
Yo, that's what's up. Oh, I'm missing people. Les Bones, good to see you. Oh, I like that little emoji. It's real cute. I like it. Reminds me of myself. Uh, Ma- Matthew Lerma, good to have you today. Marcia, I don't recognize you, but it's good to have you here. Take your
Welcome,
shoes
welcome.
off, get you some cookies and some milk. If you're lactose intolerant, get you some, I don't know, oat milk or whatever,
Lactaid.
or
Yep,
something
yep.
like that. Whatever suits you. And then, relax. And we're about to have a great show. Um, so yeah. Look, it's been a long week. For a lot of us, there's been a lot of depressing news. There's been a lot of news that just makes you go kind of like, what? And then there's some news where it's just like, well, here we go. Um, but there's also some promising things on the horizon. That you Kamali, you've been telling me about, and I'm quite excited to hear more about. Um, thank you so much, Troy. We're trying our best here, even though there's been some issues, especially with certain entities uh, online that are trying to keep us from growing. YouTube. um, so yeah, and so if you guys are watching on Rockfin, then please make sure to check us out on Rockfin as well. We are also live on Rockfin, so if you guys want to support us on there, that is great. Um, so um, we had a very good lengthy discussion yesterday,
Yep.
um, and we were talking about so many different things. Um, One thing I want to start off with, and I think this is very important, is that self care is extremely important.
Mm.
Um, and you taught me that it's important to sometimes take a step back and to center yourself. Um, you know, and I know you can identify with this, and I know many people in the chat can identify with this. And if you're not watching this live, then you can identify with this. That we look at the world and what's going on, and we feel so bogged down because we have a love for humanity. We may hate what a lot of humans do, but we still have like that love for humanity. And so we feel bogged down by it, by what we see, the oppressive capitalist system and what it does. Um, what kind of things, and you can be as vague as you need to because some of these things are personal, but what kind of elements have been helping you to be able to center yourself so that you can say, okay, we have to keep going. We can't stop trying to make the world better, but we don't want to put ourselves into a mental discord while trying to do it. Like how what has been working for you so that some of us can take tips from that and how to be able to center ourselves, because I feel like you have more of a better hold on it than even I do.
Yeah, I think folks will know that if you're following along with my channel, Radical Democracy Show, you'll notice that I haven't posted a video in a few months at this stage. Really, to be honest, I it's been even a couple of months since I've done even a guest appearance on any show. So this is my first time being out in the public eye in a while, and that was because I personally needed to take a step back, which we all need to do sometimes. And I think it's something that we need to celebrate and not shame or discourage. But it's something that we need to celebrate when someone takes time off of social media and all of the sort of, just the keeping up with the 24-hour news cycle can be exhausting and demoralizing more often than not as a leftist, because if you're a leftist, particularly in the United States, the left isn't as strong as we want it to be, I think is the nicest way that we can put it. And so I think that really just stepping away sometimes can be in taking time out for yourself, because, I've done group therapies. And one of the things that I learned there is, it's very hard to, we kind of use this metaphor of it's like you're a pitcher trying to fill up all these other cups with your love and your knowledge, trying to share that. And we can't do that if our pitcher is empty. It's impossible. We're not going to be able to fill up anyone's cups. And so we have to sometimes step back and step away and re-energize, recharge ourselves, so that we can, come back with that full pitcher, and we can pour a little bit of ourselves out and try to spread that around. But I think it's important to make sure that we take care of our own mental health, because we're no good to people if we're suffering in anxiety and depression. It becomes very hard to what Cornel West says. It's not enough to just have hope. You need to be a hope. And so I sometimes, when I feel like I can't be a hope, I have to step away. And I think that is something that we all can benefit from. And we shouldn't
Definitely.
feel any shame for not being able to be there, 100% of the time, because of the kind of work that we're doing in these spaces, and organizing and trying to, to just politically educate others, and trying to share and build solidarity across not just state lines, but international lines as well, and through all different communities. And so I personally, I sort of try to also subscribe to the Chris Hedges sort of school of thought about hope. Sometimes we have this need to try to hold on to a false sense of hope, and sometimes hope isn't really there, and we have to sort of manufacture it. And what Chris Hedges says is that the hope and the joy is in the struggle. The joy is in the struggle. And so sometimes it is through the process of struggling together with others, just being able to connect on the level of, listen, we're going through tough times, and we're all in this together. And connecting on that level, and recognizing that it is a struggle, and maybe we're not going to succeed on all of the things that we're looking at in our lifetimes, but we can find joy in the struggle. And so I do try to find joy in that struggle with comrades like yourself and other folks. And I have the benefit of being, somewhat, just even a very small way in the public eye. And I have the benefit of having folks, really great folks from Fred Hampton Leftists and, even Quaker Socialists in the comments here, who personally reached out to me and asked, how am I doing? And those things, it really goes a long way, just lending an ear to a comrade can go a long way. And so I think that just keeping our focus on it can feel sometimes like you're being selfish, and I don't want folks to feel that way. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. We have to take care of ourselves before we can really take care of others. And so, just encouraging that, encouraging time off, celebrating, not just encouraging, but really celebrating people taking time off, I think, from social media and all of the discourse is something that we can all benefit from. So that's what I've been doing, just taking some time off. I've been, my hand is forced in a lot of ways by the capitalist system, needing to, being someone that is housing insecure, struggles with mental health issues. Uh, you know, I've had to, with the end of unemployment, it really, really forces our hand into a way, and it doesn't change the outcomes for a lot of people, as we've seen in the states that have ended unemployment earlier. The rate of reemployment has not really changed. In the month of July, we just had the most Americans quitting their jobs in the history of this being tracked. 4 million Americans quit their jobs in July. That's where the most recent numbers are from. And it's because the capitalist system is failing around us. And so we just have to start to look towards other models, beyond post-capitalist models of organizing and structuring and relating to one another. And I think it's really important for groups like like the Fred Hampton Leftists and others to try to, we saw, not that far back, we saw an organization, the Current Affairs magazine, had a public, display of just falling out, because we have a lot of folks on the left that preach the notion of socialism, but don't want to enact it in the very places where they hold power, or essentially where they hold power, where they actually have direct influence. And I think that that's something that the left really needs to grapple with, because I think we can't just talk the talk. It's time to start walking the walk, and that means doing so in the organizations where we have this type of control. And so I would really like to see, it's very hard for me now to take any anti-capitalist organization seriously if they're not actually enacting those principles right where they are. And so I'm trying to spread the word of, these different models of democracy that we can be embracing, because it's time for us on the left to, again, stop just talking the talk, start walking the walk. And it's hard work, but we can't be out here preaching every day that other people need to be doing this work if we're not willing to do it ourselves and lead by example. And so, that's one of the things that in our private conversation yesterday came up. And I think it's something that we're going to try to broach the topic of today. And so I'm very excited to do that and to start having those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. One of the things that I love that you told me this yesterday, and it was such a great example, and it's needed for everyone to hear, is that you cannot pour from an empty jug.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
I liken it to two people drowning can't save one another,
Mm. Yeah.
right? You have to be able to, or it's just like when you're flying and they give you that pre-flight example that you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first
Yeah.
before you put your oxygen mask on somebody else.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that we are going through so much as far as the system is concerned. And a lot of people will go, "Oh, but you just need to practice self-care, but at the same time, you just got to suck it up." And this is for especially a lot of us men out there.
Yeah.
The whole act of just suck it up and grit your teeth and just go through it. No. Uh-uh. We are men, not machines,
Mm.
right? I feel like women have a better hold on this a little bit, because they're able to um, be more free because the society is it has more of an allowance for women to be more free with their emotions, but society kind of bogs down on men and it goes, no, you can't express this. So number one, we have to be able to be in that so that we can have that release. But secondly, we also have to reach out to people who we can have that support system so that we're able to deal with the system because it's going to keep going because we're in a constant fight. And so this is one of the things I know I kind of started off left field, but I feel that this is important to talk about because I want a lot of people who are watching to realize number one, you're not alone. Your suffering is not alone. Your your angst, your depression, your fear, your sadness, you're not alone. We're with you and we're all fighting so that you don't feel that anymore, so that we don't feel that anymore, so that we don't see other people suffer anymore. Because right now we're looking at people who've been at the border for years trying to get in so that they could alleviate some suffering. We're looking at people in Palestine that are suffering, and part of that suffering is being due because of some of our Congress members voting for, you know, different offensive measures from an apartheid state. You see the suffering that's going on, the different people being bombed in different countries in Africa for their resources. And this is what is making us depressed. Not just that, but also what you're going through. Like, look, many of you right now got some bills that y'all didn't even open up yet because you guys know it's gonna be some bad news.
Yeah. I got a whole
Some of
stack right
y'all just
behind me over
some
here.
of y'all got the bills stuffed up in the upper visor in your car that y'all haven't opened up. Y'all probably got it in a box somewhere. Y'all just like, I can't deal with this. Some of y'all got some missed calls. Some of y'all got some unanswered voicemails, some unanswered emails, and you're just like, I just can't deal with it. And why? Why is that? It's because the system has made it so that it's hard for you as a human to deal with it. I know. I look, yo. I can tell you the piles of bills that I got right now that I'm just like, yo, I can't even open it unless it's from something like extremely important to like my livelihood, like my social security or something like, or my Medicare. Other than that, it's like, yo, y'all gonna have to take a step back. And every single time you get a phone number call and they're asking you for your government name, and then they're like, "This call is being recorded for quality assurance." And then next thing you know, you got to either hang up or you have to try to struggle to find the words to actually tell somebody, "I don't have the money right now." And so all that, and then you have the straw that breaks the camel's back. I forgot exactly what you call. I think you called it a certain name yesterday, but it's like all this compounding stuff that is on top of you. And we're here to say, take a step back. Don't worry about the trolls on social media. Don't worry about people, turn off the news
Yeah.
and just relax and take care of yourself and just remember that we are also with you.
Yeah,
I just want to take
absolutely.
the first few minutes of this program just to let you guys know that we are here for you. Um, and look, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. You guys know me, and we can talk.
Yeah,
You
hit me
know,
up right there on to the fifth on Twitter. DM me. I'm
yeah,
slow to respond sometimes, but especially in the case of folks with mental health struggles and things like that, I try to really prioritize that above everything else. And so, do not hesitate. If you need a comrade in need, I try when I see anyone posting publicly on social media
hmm
anything that is alarming. I try my best to reach out directly and
hmm
show some solidarity with them. And so please, don't hesitate. You have companions here in this struggle. So don't feel alone in that, for sure.
yeah.
What's up, Savvy?
Hey, Savvy. FHL co-host and host of the Savvy Sabs channel. Go ahead and check her out. She's amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that we got the letting people of our love and solidarity in the beginning, um,
Yes.
we were talking yesterday also about um, you were talking about the general strike.
Yes.
Um, Now, full disclosure, and many of you already know that CJ Compton J from Fred Hampton Leftist Network is spearheading a general strike summit on the second weekend of November, which we'll be talking about what it takes for a general strike, what type of elements need to be produced, things like that. But we also, many of us also know of a general strike being planned on October 15th. I don't know why I had to think about it, but for some reason my brain just was like trying to make me forget the actual number, but for some reason it popped up in my head again. Whoop de doo. But yeah, so October 15th is a general strike. Um, so, first of all, before we get into the details of this, what are your thoughts about general strikes, Kamali? Just so that the audience knows.
Yeah, well, I think that they are. I think it's our last best tool that we have in our leftist tool belt at this point to enact change. Everyone that is, even nominally supports
Hmm.
Medicare for all, housing as a human right, food and housing security for every human being.
Hmm.
I think that we've seen our politicians and our political systems have failed us, and the last best power that we have is our labor power, right?
Hmm.
The country doesn't run if the workers don't show up. They want you to believe that the most important people in these capitalist institutions are the executives and the CEOs, but we all saw who they called essential workers when this country shut down, back in April 2020. We found out who the essential workers were in our society. And we saw those people that they were calling essential workers were really, by and large, expendable workers to the
Yeah.
capitalist system. They are the people that they were willing to stick on the front lines of a pandemic with no protections or poor protections, and no increase in pay, no hazard pay, no serious hazard pay. Some people were given little crumbs here and there, a $2 raise, meaningless stuff. We weren't even given time and a half or a guarantee of a basic dignified $25 minimum wage, which, I'm done talking about $15 minimum wage. That's
Oh yeah.
that's tired. It's tired. It's old. It's insignificant. That amounts to about $30,000 a year before taxes, which can't pay for most. It can't pay the minimum wage in any state in the country cannot pay for the average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment in that same region. And so what we're talking about now has to be at least a $25 minimum wage. If we're talking about keeping up with inflation and productivity, that's where we need to be at. But I think that we've seen the failure of even politicians that many thought were on our side, or people call allies to the left, folks like AOC, the
Hmm.
Squad, Justice Democrats. These people have failed us time and time again, repeatedly. It began really with the Force the Vote movement. We saw that was sort of, for me, that was the breaking point for me, where I came out in the days leading up to it. I tried to focus as much attention on it as possible, look past all the personality BS, and sort of celebrity culture that was going on within, people focusing on the individuals that happen to be supportive of it, and instead focus on the actual policy at hand. And it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, truly. I mean, you had a once in 100-year public health crisis going on. We hadn't seen anything like that since the 1918 flu. The misnomer is called the Spanish flu, even though it started on a military base in Kansas, in the United States. It's called the Spanish flu simply because the Spanish people were reporting the deaths, but more so than any other person, because they were being actually transparent about what was going on. Many may know that the U.S. has now surpassed the 675,000 deaths that we had during the 1918 pandemic. We have now surpassed that in the United States with COVID-19. And that was at a time when the healthcare system was much poorer, literally poorer, economically poorer, and a worse healthcare system, less resources, and they still managed to handle that pandemic better than what we've done now with all of modern technology. And so, and then so we've seen countless examples. It was first force the vote, then it was the $15 minimum wage, the absolute failure on a $15 minimum wage, which was the compromise position out of the Justice Democrats and other so-called progressive politicians. And then we saw the failure on this infrastructure bill. And now we even see things like, AOC and the rest of the squad's complete failure on something so basic as not providing $1 billion to the, settler colonialist Israeli government, that is enacting settler colonialism over the Palestinian people, and we should reject settler colonialism at every turn, at all cost. We cannot accept or allow it, and we just funded them to the tune of $1 billion. They'll say it's for defense, their Iron Dome defense system. Check out Norm Finkelstein's video on the Hamas rockets and what those really are, and the actual damage done by those. And but that $1 billion, while being claimed for defense, it opens up and it enables. What that does is that just saves the Israeli government $1 billion that they can put towards weapons of offense that they will inevitably use to brutalize and murder Palestinians. And so to anyone that wants to claim that this is money being put towards defense, I'll also remind them that Israel has an actual universal healthcare system. As much as people want to try to liken it to Obamacare, it is not Obamacare, because every citizen is actually covered under their universal healthcare system. Of course, there is all kinds of apartheid exceptions carved out for the Palestinians who, and the Muslim people who live within Israel and Jerusalem. But we saw the failure, the absolute just abject failure of AOC and the squad and the Democratic Party to do anything meaningful to fight against this settler colonialism in Israel and Palestine. And so I think that people have to recognize that those channels are, electing more politicians is not going to be a solution. We can elect, what is the number that we have to get to in order for these so-called progressives to stand up and exercise power, leverage power, because they had the numbers, as Ilhan Omar had tweeted out not too long ago, back in December, I believe it was November or December, had tweeted out that all they need is 4 or 5, members of the squad and the Justice Democrats to withhold their vote on any piece of legislation, and they can leverage power that way, and they refuse to do so time and time again. So what do we have left? And the only answer is our labor power, and that's why this general strike is so important. And I feel like one of the things that actually made me step away from the political commentary for a while was the fact that I was seeing too much, just too much discourse around individuals in the sort of online left political commentary space, and fighting, this sort of infighting against one another. I'm not opposed to critical disagreements within any movement spaces. We should always be critical. No one is beyond reproach, and we should always be self-reflective of the movements that we are contributing to. However, I felt like too much of the time was being taken up and energy was being focused on, picking sides in these like sort of, it's just like a cult of celebrity kind of, actions being taken, and focus being pulled away by certain commentators who I won't even give the, dignify with even saying their names at this stage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it became about fighting over, arguing over politicians and Nina Turner's election, and as if that was meaningful in any way and was going to really make, be responsible for any real changes happening in the society. And too much of the focus was being pulled there when we had this general strike coming up, and not enough of the left and sort of online left political commentary space was being used to use our platforms to draw attention to that, very necessary step that has to be taken at this stage. And so the general strike is happening on October 15th. I think it is our last, general striking is going to be our last best hope. I don't think that the October 15th strike will be the end all be all. I do think that it is an important moment. It has been in the works and being, discussed and planned and organized for. Another failure that we saw, by the way, that had just popped into my head was the March for Medicare for All. It was the way that some more on the center left were attacking the sort of Majority Report, Sam Cedars of the world, that were spending time attacking the movement instead of, supporting and participating, being, having some sort of constructive criticism, instead of just the destructive criticism that they were showing. And that was really discouraging as well. And so I really, this general strike, I think, is a unique opportunity for us to show what kind of labor power we have in this country. And what it is, a general strike, these have happened in the United States. They just haven't happened in nearly, a century in this country. But it was back when labor unions were strong, when we had a strong communist and socialist, representation in this country. Many people may not know, little trivia question here, where were the most socialists elected to our, to U.S. government in the country? Many people would probably think that it was in some sort of liberal bastion, one of these liberal, coastal elite places. But the reality is, it was Oklahoma. Oklahoma had over 100 socialists elected to public government in the United States back in the early 1900s. And systematically, the capitalist system has torn down those socialists, communists. We had Red Scare, McCarthyism, and now neoliberalism that constantly seeks to attack. Eric Gray, see, Oklahoma, nice, Eric Gray, good work, Eric. And so it's we've seen the systematic destruction of, and the reason is capitalist system will always, it leaves a handful of people, a small minority of people, with all the power and incentive to destroy that system, to hold on to their power. And so as much as I believe in labor unions, I think that we've seen, wildcat strikes, very effective wildcat strikes, like with the teacher strike that happened a few years back. Those were wildcat strikes. Those were not under the help or approval of their unions, but they had to work outside of the unions to get stuff done. And we saw that it had a real impact. And so I think that this general strike, October 15th, is something that we should all be focused on. We should all be participating in some way. I mean, there are mutual aid efforts going on to try to support folks that are going to be, that are working and going to be general striking. If there are any kind of rallies being held, I think that it's a time for us to get out there and to show our support. And that way, even for the unemployed, I am unemployed. I've been unemployed for 2 years now, but I will absolutely be looking for rallies to attend in order to show up and support the folks. Bring water, bring whatever, and just whatever you have, whatever resources you happen to have. Bring some bottled water or whatever you can out there to support, within your communities, this general strike. And so I just think it's something that we all need to be focused on. It won't be the last, chance for us to perform a general strike, but I think that this is the first, biggest, best chance that we have. And I really hope to see a strong showing for, I know all the pushback that people will give to say some people can't strike, some people are in really dire situations. Some of us are in, many people are in even more dire situations. And honestly, we're all, one whimsical decision away from being fired and let go off of our jobs. And so the time to use that power, to exercise that power, is now. You need to, it takes some risk. Some people are bearing the brunt of all the risk in our society. The most marginalized people are typically bearing the brunt of all this sort of risk in our society. And it's time to stand up in solidarity, or, show up in solidarity in whatever way you can with those folks. If you are a working person, there are steps you can take. There's a website that you can go to, octoberstrike.com. And they have all kinds of resources on there. You can check out, you can sign up from, to receive more information. You'll find all kinds of resources. They'll tell you exactly what you can do as an individual, a working person, to, one, try to protect yourself. There's no guarantee. There is no 100% guarantee. People can be fired. People can be retaliated against by their bosses. But you know what? We're in an untenable system. And before long, our planet is literally burning around us, and nothing is being done by the Biden administration. We have, we see the near slave-like treatment of Haitian migrants at our border. Biden has created policies like expedited removal policies for migrants that's from, Central South America, as well as, Haitian migrants as well, that he has been just absolutely abusive towards. And so, you can see what their goals are here, things like a, free healthcare for all, and that's free at the point of service, healthcare for all, 12 weeks paid paternity and maternity, at least a $20 minimum wage, a 4-day work week. We have strict goals that we have, that are being set here, that we all agree on. So if you believe in these things like, an improved Medicare for all system, a $20 minimum wage, this is the opportunity to get that done. So that's what the October strike is. I think everybody, I think that James has provided links in the description to the October strike website. Let us know. James was having some trouble connecting to the website. It was timing out for James. Yeah. So please check it out if you can right now. Open it up in another tab if you can, and let us know in the comments if you're having any trouble connecting to the website. If so, I will personally reach out to the folks. They may be under DDoS attacks or anything else like that. I won't put any sort of sort of scummy attacks past. I wouldn't put that past the capitalists in our society to try to do whatever they can to prevent people from being able to show up in solidarity for this movement. So please check it out. Do yourself that favor, because honestly, general strikes are our last best hope. And a general strike just means a strike that goes across one single industry. It's a strike that is, and this is, this strike, is going to be happening not just in the United States, but around the world as well. And so I think that folks need to, we unfortunately in the U.S. don't have as recent a history of, of revolutionary struggles. And so we've sort of gotten away from it and forgotten what revolutionary struggle really looks like. But it does require risk on all of our parts. And just know that we are all in this together, and that's one way to show up and show out for that.
Okay, so just one point I want to make from Nick Carduzzi. It says, you said free at the point of service means doctors slaves. Absolutely not, because the thing is that, let me ask you this: are firefighters slaves?
Absolutely, exactly.
Are police officers slaves?
Yeah. Come on,
no.
let's not kid ourselves.
Let's be real. Okay, so when we talk about a single payer healthcare system, that's basically just meaning that the government will be the insurance payer, not some private institution. That's all it is. And even that is weak to me. I'd rather have it all nationalized, including the pharmaceutical companies, the medical device manufacturers, and hospitals. That's me.
And I would even take it a step further than nationalization. I would advocate for a democratic control over all of those individual institutions, the hospitals, all of these institutions, the hospitals, the clinics. Not just. I think that yes, a nationalized health system it is a step better than having this sort of private private doctors and clinics and hospitals with a publicly funded insurance system, I think that it is a step in the right direction. We see from,
Yeah.
the UK, their national health services. But I think we could go even further away from authoritarian sort of control over any structure, because we know that, folks, we don't know who's going to be in control of our government at any given moment in this
Yeah.
country. It constantly swings back
Yeah.
and forth. And of course, a Republican can get back in control, or a right winger, or even a neoliberal, and attack that system. And so it leaves it up to it, by decentralizing it. I think we get an even better, defense against this sort of, authoritarian control over it. But I do think that national healthcare system is a step in the right, still a step in the right direction, and
Yeah.
better than what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Now, as far as the goals are concerned, this is just my opinion. These goals are weak. Um, but they're a step in the right direction. So my thing is support the strike because it starts a conversation and it starts the ball rolling.
Yeah.
All you need to do to get the snowball effect is just a good push.
Yeah. Remember what
And
happened
yeah,
with the yellow vest movement in France? It started out on rejecting a carbon tax, and it led to many, many other reforms,
yeah,
that are substantive reforms that have happened through that. So absolutely, I agree. This
yeah,
is only a starting point.
yeah,
And I think it's a decent starting point. Universal health care, $20 minimum wage. Those are things that we were trying to get through our electoral system and failed.
mhm,
And this is the way
yeah,
that we can actually try to enact those things. So
yeah,
totally agree with you, James, on that.
yeah. So my thing is that for the next strike, because this is going to be the only one,
Yeah.
we go even further. So for instance, like for instance, the corporate tax, with no loopholes. I say we go I say we go way further. I say we go, 70, 75% first
Yeah.
on that. Full
Uh,
nationalization. And
in the
and
1940s and 50s, we had a 94% marginal tax rate in this country,
yeah,
and we're just talking about 70% is the highest numbers I've seen floated nowadays.
yeah,
And that was when a lot of people will look back at the country and say that was the golden era in America. The
yeah,
50s was what a lot of particularly white folks consider the sort of, when they say we want to, like, make America great again, that's the again that they're talking about, that they're referring to as the 50s. And that was because of the strong social safety net and high tax rate, high marginal tax rate. It doesn't mean every dollar you get is taxed at 94%, but it was pretty much every dollar over modern day about $200,000 was being taxed at a much higher rate, 70% and above. Once it got to a little over $1 million, or it was around close to $2 million, it was a 94% tax rate. And that was with FDR proposing, and FDR is not perfect. We all know internment camps and all of that, but he proposed a 100% tax rate, meaning a maximum wage where every dime, every penny over a certain amount of income would be taxed completely. So that's implementing a maximum wage. And so I think we got to get more radical than what we're talking about here. Of course, 25% corporate tax rate is supposed to be the effective tax rate with no loopholes, which we know that takes a total overhaul and just we got to throw away the current U.S. tax code because it's
yeah.
absurd. The book on the U.S. tax code is literally like this thick. Nobody can
Mhm.
understand it, and we got to get past that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so looking at the other goals of the strike, you know, I hope that when we have the next one, then we will shoot a lot farther because it's like I said last week on Wednesday, if you shoot for the stars, you might get the moon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as going for these things, because the thing is that a lot of times, a lot of these proposals, we've already negotiated ourselves down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We're
so
starting from a
that's,
compromised position.
yeah. And, we need to actually make the goals kind of obscenely way bigger than
Yeah.
it has to be kind of laughable how big we make them
Yep.
so that when we do get to the compromise position, it's kind of like, okay, we're cool. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
That's how negotiation is supposed to work. You know, that's how a strong negotiator goes in. Things like 12 weeks of paid paternity and maternity leave. There are countries like Estonia that have, 18 months to 2 years of
Yeah,
paid maternity and paternity leave. All right. Like two
yeah,
years. All right. So to talk about 12 weeks is just where, for a country that claims to be about, especially even right wingers talk about family values. Where's the family values there? If we're not giving parents a chance to be with and raise their children, where's where are the family values to that?
hang on.
Yep, no problem. And I do support a 4-day work week. I think, what
Of
made it
course.
what made 40 hours the appropriate number. 40 hours is way too much, and we don't need that. Based on all the technological advancements that we've gotten, we can do better than a 40-hour 5-day work week. We could be doing a 4-day, we should be talking about 30 hours or less at this stage. We could be the father of the economic system that we use nowadays is I'm spacing on his name right now. He's from the UK. It's the whole section of economics right now that sort of Elizabeth Warren subscribes to, Keynesian, John Maynard Keynes. So Keynesian economics. He wrote an article 100 years, just under 100 years ago, about 90 years ago. He wrote an article, and he was imagining what the economic system of capitalism would look like 100 years in the future, which is about 10 years from now or 9 years from now. I think it's around 2030. I think he wrote in like around 1930. I believe he wrote it. And so what he envisioned was that by that 100-year mark, that people would be working on average about 15 hours a week, because he felt like by this point, with all the technological advancements we would make, and we have made all those we've gone way beyond what he imagined for technological advancements. He imagined about a 15-hour work week, because that's really, if we all got together and split up the necessary work in our society, got rid of all the unnecessary work, like working at an insurance company, a health insurance company, that's unnecessary work. The financial services, those are parasitic forces on our economy. If we got rid of all of that, then we could actually get it down to the food growing, the provision of things like electricity and internet and all those sort of basic services and needs, building enough housing and maintaining that housing. We could get down to about 15 hours a week of work for every able-bodied citizen, and that's the society that we should be striving for at this stage.
Human love solidarity. Yeah, I
Yes,
love that
yes,
point.
yes.
I love that point.
Yeah.
Iceland jailed the bankers. Yeah, there. We also need to get some politicians as well.
Yeah,
And,
look at what
and
Why is it that, like, we arrested and jailed a bunch of black and brown people primarily for selling weed, which is now legal. Is now legal in most states at this stage. Legal
Mhm.
for the majority of Americans at this stage, and we jailed a whole bunch of them. We jailed a whole bunch of black people during the crack epidemic, and heroin epidemics. And now, and even the opiate epidemic, we jail a bunch of low-level drug dealers, but yet somebody like Purdue Pharma, run by the Sackler family, can knowingly kill hundreds of thousands of people during this opioid epidemic, knowingly, with their OxyContin, knowingly killed, addicted and then killed, through overdose, hundreds of thousands of people, and they face no jail time. They face a
Yeah,
slap on the wrist fine.
yeah,
It's like us finding pennies in our couch. Essentially, that's the equivalent of the fine that they placed on the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma. And they literally are just gonna close down as Purdue Pharma and reopen under another name, and that's it. And we
yeah.
don't, none of them, no prison time. They say corporations are people. Why can't corporations be given a death penalty like people? We give people the death penalty, which I don't agree with. If we can give a human death penalty, why don't we have a corporate death penalty? So if these corporations are really people, we should be able to jail corporations the way we jailed black and brown people in this country.
That's a good point. Now, uh, looking at some more points, um, and there are a lot of people who have many different critiques of it, but at least it's something, right?
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, uh, I think that uh, it's just like this. For a lot of us, we want to, we want to nationalize healthcare system, but we're okay with, a single payer healthcare system. We're fine. It's a step in the right direction. I feel the same way about this October 15th strike, right? It's not the end all be all, and it's definitely not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. I think we should support it. This is one of the reasons why I don't downplay it at all. And one of the things that want to I want to do more of is I want to basically promote this a little bit more, um, which I will be doing in the next few weeks. But also, I want people to know that this will not be the only one. And
Yeah.
also, I even think that more targeted strikes can happen. And I think that's something that we can actually have easier success with. Um, Look, there was a freight ship. There was a ship in the connect. Oh my gosh, names are blanking on me. The
I might be wrong. It might have
Panama
been the
Canal,
Baez Canal, or yeah.
Panama Canal, that got caught, and it shut things down, like really shut things down in that canal because it was preventing things from getting to our coasts. Because we're largely a service economy, we don't really make things anymore. So to block things that are being made from other countries to getting to us really could have put a hamper on these corporations. That being said, do you know a few truck drivers? Because I'll tell you this: there was a news report that came out that a bunch of restaurants were suffering because a lot of drivers who drove for delivery trucks from the food producers to restaurants, they suddenly stopped working. Like a lot of them had quit or they were fired during the pandemic, and they weren't hiring enough drivers, and so a lot of restaurants were suffering. Now, some of these restaurants are being owned by big corporations. Like, for instance, one of the most famous ones is Darden, right? So, if you have truck drivers that suddenly say, you know what, we're going on a strike, and until you guys meet the needs of the people, trucks pretty much are the lifeblood of this entire country as far as the corporations are concerned. Do you know a truck driver? And one of the things that a lot of people are talking about is, but what about mutual aid? And that is one of the most important aspects of a strike, period. Because if if a strike is the heart of getting change, mutual aid is the blood that runs through to keep it going.
Yeah.
So you have to have that mutual aid there. And if you know of any mutual aid programs, tag me in Twitter. Put the link there. I will share. I will share it.
Yeah.
I have a few followers. I don't have as many as some people do, but I have a few. And then maybe, I got some people who are a little bit more famous that have more followers than I do that can share it too.
Yeah. And
And
mutual
so,
aid doesn't
and
always have to be formal. Sometimes it can be informal. It can be
oh,
saying to a comrade that you know is working, if you might be unemployed or whatever your situation is, or you're employed. It can be informal. It can be saying to your comrade, hey, we're going on. We're doing this general strike. If you need support, let me know. Let me know what you need. I can provide. I got extra whatever. I got water. I got a bed you can stay in if anything goes wrong. I got a room you can use if you happen to have that kind of access. So it doesn't always mutual aid doesn't always have to be through a formal organization as well. We can do it
uh-huh.
just one-on-one to each other as well.
Yeah. Oh, I want to get this one point, and I want to thank Gary S. Seth for this. He said, as long as the 1% get theirs, they don't give a f about you. Here's the thing: the goal is to make sure that they don't get theirs. So they have to give a F about you.
Yeah.
See? And see, the thing is that a lot of people think, well, how are we going to fight against the corporations? You work for them and they need you in
Yeah.
order
A
to
lot
work.
of times, they
Yeah.
try to flip it on you. They try to flip it on you, and what they flip the language, right? And they say that it's the employer, it's the capitalist, it's the employer who's giving you a job. When the reality is that you are giving the employer your labor. Your labor is what creates the surplus that feeds them. All right. So don't think of them as as them doing some benevolent favor to you. No, the power flows from the bottom up. All right. And so we really do. It's through collective action that we actually realize that power. So these kind of movements, these general strikes, these labor movements are, again, our last ditch, our last best hope, I think.
Zanitu. Zanitu. I like the way you think. Yeah, I'm reading it. Are you reading it?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
reading it too. You see that?
yep.
Yeah.
This is what
Okay.
Chris Hedges talks about. This is what Chris Hedges talks about all the time.
Hmm.
He's like, this is the kind of direct action that we really need. It only
Uh-huh.
takes a few people. Yeah.
It takes just a few people. And look, wouldn't it be convenient for those cars to break down right near big old truck stops?
Yeah. Or drilling, any kind of drilling or fracking that's going on. You can people just drive up and park a junky car and just take off. Just take out the
Hmm.
keys, remove the engine block, and walk away. And there's a whole lot of people that are capable of doing that.
Because here's the thing. One of the things that I was thinking about is, especially about that whole restaurant situation, was that yes, those trucks weren't able to get to those restaurants to supply them with the food they need in order to, to operate. But also, it also tied the hands of all the employees so they couldn't even go to work. So they actually had to strike just that way. It's just like, well, I can't go to work,
Yeah.
right? Because it kind of forces a strike. But then you can also go to them and be like, look, when the restaurant opens back up, don't go back. Call in sick. And we have a mutual aid program that will help you to survive in the meantime
Yeah.
so that you guys can stay striking. You guys can go on a strike as well. Because look, a lot of times when, you don't have to, you don't necessarily have to do a huge amount of people. There was somebody in the chat, I forgot your name. I'm sorry, but you said studies shown that literally only 3.5% of a population needs to do something in order to cause it to stop. Look, a blood clot the size of a tiny pea can kill a person.
Yeah.
What do you think a small amount of people in the right strategic places can do to an economy?
Yeah.
You know. So my thing is that, um, and the thing is that how rich people are doing by watching the stock market. Um, and so if we have mutual aid that's helping everybody else except for those rich people, then guess what? Guess who will be begging us to get back to work and do things that, to keep them in the place that they are. And we don't want them to be a place where they are. The only thing though is, and I have to say this about a general strike, is that I don't want the general strike necessarily to be a tool to keep capitalism around. That's the
Absolutely.
only thing that I'm just like, ah, I'm just like, but at the same time, I'm not an accelerationist, but I don't want to save capitalism. You know what I mean?
And this is possibly a good transition to a discussion on dual power, because that's what it really becomes about. What we need to start to work towards, particularly for leftists, is
Hmm.
a movement towards dual power. And dual power is simply, in the wake of crumbling institutions, which we see with the capitalist economic system in our government, our media, mainstream media. These institutions are crumbling around us. what Fred Hampton Leftist is doing right now is a part of dual power, right? It's a part of starting to build something in an alternative to those pre-existing authoritarian structures that happen to exist in our society. And so when we talk about this general strike, it's also a critical opportunity for us to get together and to start to build political education around dual power and to actually start to work towards substantive means of developing dual power. And dual power, again, is just us building up the institutions that we seek to have replace the ones that we know are failing us, the institutions of policing that are failing us. We have to start to build the institutions up that we want to see replace them. We need to start to build systems where we have, I joked around with James yesterday about a 311. We got to have a number people can start to call instead of 911, so that when there's a situation around homelessness or mental health crises, we're not calling in some armed thug to come around and escalate violence. Instead, we have to start to, and Alex Vital talks about this in his book, The End of Policing. He talks about, he doesn't use the word dual power, but it's exactly what he's talking about when he says it's not going to work that we can, and even I did an interview with Awkward, rapper, abolitionist. I know that he's been on the Fred Hampton network. I think him and Nick are responsible for the Unite the Left project that they're working on together, and for the 10 demands for justice. I think that Nick, Socialist MMA, has had a hand in that as well. And I talked to him on my program, and one of the things he said is that it's not like abolition is something that's just going to happen tomorrow, and it's just going to be like we're going to just get rid of all the police. You're just going to end policing. No, you got to build up in the meantime the institutions that we want to replace those. And so one of the things that I really am a strong advocate for, and I am trying to lend first, just participating as a just sort of just a public participant in the system, but I'm actually, because I'm trained in software engineering, I hope to join in the open source effort of actually developing this app. And the Black Socialists in America you can check out their work. It's at the link is in the description box below. Please, right click that thing, open it up in a new tab so that you can check it out when the show's done, or take a look at it and listen along while you're listening to this podcast. You can take a quick look at it, but definitely check that out, because what they're doing there is starting to build the technological infrastructure that we need within our organizations to actually implement democracy within the organization. So to actually form organizations, to form these relationships, and then to be able to enact, enable, provide means and infrastructure for participating in real democracy. And that they have tools that they're developing, and you can see this all. It's an open source and it's open to the public. Anyone can participate in this project, no matter whether you're a developer or a designer or not. You can give your feedback. You can have direct participation, because they believe in not just talking the talk, but in walking the walk, and actually developing this app not just for democracy, but developing it democratically, right? So they are using democratic consensus to build an app that allows others to, to have the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure to build, and enable, to provide democratic consensus in their organizations. And I think that this is such a critical tool, and something that everyone should check out. They pretty much every Wednesday around 7 p.m. Eastern, they typically have a session, an open design session, an open development session, where you can hear all about it. They have resources on their website. I think it's dualpower.app. Again, links are in the description box below. And thank you to James for providing those links. So you can check that out, and again, join in. This is a way to directly participate in something that I believe is going to be, provide a meaningful change in our society, and actually allow us to begin to participate and to support dual power projects. They have something on their website, the Black Socialists in America, where you can see some dual power projects. Things like Cooperation Jackson, going on in Jackson, Mississippi right now, is a Black-led socialist, organization that has done mutual aid efforts and all kinds of real substantive support for people. And they're all about developing dual power. And so it's a term that I think we all need to get familiar with. I think it was originally coined by somebody like, I think maybe Lenin was originally coined the term. But this is something that everyone should be aware of on the left, and should participate in any way that they can. And we can get more into the discussion of what democratic consensus really is, of course.
Yeah. I just want to give attention to E. Heller. JB is Batman for capitalism. No. See, here's the thing. See, if I were Batman, I would have used my billions and I would have actually just uplifted everyone who is in poverty up to a decent standard of living, so that there wouldn't have to be committing crime, so that I wouldn't have to become Batman. So
Yeah, because
that's what I would have done.
Batman's like the worst superhero. I don't know how
Yeah.
any leftist can admire Batman in any way, shape, or form. This is a billionaire who goes around and assaults people committing low-level crimes against banks and capitalist institutions, robbing banks and things like that. Like, why is a billionaire out there assaulting these people instead of supporting them in their efforts, to be honest? And so Batman's like the worst superhero, the worst.
Yeah. So I mean, and I appreciate the sentiment, but yeah, I wouldn't have been.
Yeah, no.
I just would have been. I just would have been Bruce Wayne, mutual aid provider. That's
Yeah,
probably what
yeah.
I would have been. I wouldn't even have been a billionaire. Would have been like using that to provide mutual aid.
Exactly.
But
We should never get to the point of being a billionaire. No billionaire should not exist. We should
yeah,
abolish billionaires. Like before you ever make it to being a billionaire, you should be giving away, because no human being can spend $1 billion in a lifetime. Period.
mhm,
That's
mhm,
$1,000 million. Okay.
yeah,
That means that's 110 million. So even if you spend $10 million a year, you would have to live to 100 to be able to get through that. And somehow you'd have to be so stupid with your money that you didn't invest some of that in index funds and the stock market and all these other, gross capitalist, institutions that will allow your money to simply generate more money. You could literally just be living off of the interest you accrue on those dollars. And so nobody should ever be a billionaire. And so, yes, absolutely. Mutual aid should come way before that point.
yeah, way before. Um, yeah. Namor said Tony Stark. Tony Stark would have been the executive board of Raytheon. Yeah, unfortunately, he would have.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I hate
Yeah.
it in Iron Man 2 where he said, I have just he said I had just privatized national security or something like that. Oh, I just
Bro.
privatized world peace. I'm like, no, 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 no,
No.
no, 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 Tony. We're not privatizing world peace. No, it has to be a
What does
collective
it?
effort.
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
you are not going to have that much power. But speaking of power, the dual power, that's actually really great. Um, because a lot of times, um, we talk about wanting to replace it, but we don't have a replacement to replace it with. See what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, right now we're talking to Quaker socialists and I think Sharif Shrugs, who was from the March for
March for
Medicare.
Medicare. Yeah.
And we're talking about some ways that to actually create a healthcare institution that would replace what we have now. So that's like taking the power away from the for-profit healthcare industry and replace it with a nonprofit healthcare industry that 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 puts people over profits. Because in the healthcare industry, that's like duh, people over profits. Like why not? Um, the idea of putting, a community protection that protects your local community instead of having to call the police. Yes. Um, trying to encourage workers, if they can, to create a worker co-op maybe even buy out the owner and then just all collectively own it all at the same time, so that you all rake in the profits as workers, and you all have a say democratically in what goes on in that workplace or that corporation. Yes. So it's a means of growing a socialistic type of apparatus, kind of. I don't want to say kind of in secret, but it's like it's growing, but the capitalists don't really know it. It's just like
Yeah.
it's just like if you live in an apartment building, and if you can get everybody to collectively buy out the owner of the apartment building, and then
Yes.
you all collectively own the apartment
Yeah.
all together, like,
Yeah.
and so these are
That's the
a lot
path
of
forward.
different ideas. I mean, even if you're just trying to unionize, the only caution I would say is, um a lot of times union bosses and union leaders, they'll try to work in league with like the owners of the corporations,
Yep.
because they're basically like an extension of the corporation. That's the only thing I'm kind of like iffy with. But the union members, if they can keep their representative in check, then encourage more unions if you can. But collective ownership is even further, and I think you should be pushing for that.
Yeah.
So it's just there's a
Because
lot
the
of different
problem
ideas.
the
Yeah.
problem with unions is hierarchy, right? Like this is why, anarchists are so so hell-bent on destroying hierarchies, right?
Hmm.
And having horizontal structures, because hierarchy creates the conditions for
Hmm.
oppressive, coercive control over, and it's a minoritarian system of democracy, right? We can
Hmm.
talk about different models of democracy, and one of the ones that we had, are hoping to be able to cover today, we talking about consensual democracy, democratic consent,
Yeah, we were talking about
and
yesterday.
exactly, that we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
But there are other forms of democracy, other models of democracy. We know about, majoritarian democracy. That's, when you have a vote, and if 50% plus one person votes for something, then that wins over, and that's a majoritarian system. You have minoritarian democracies like what we have here in the United States, which are essentially representative democracies, which unions ultimately tend to reflect minoritarian democracies, where you have representatives, and what happens is those representatives have all the real power inside of that organization. And that's why we can see things like union bosses not being willing to go on strike, even though the majority of the union members sometimes will support a strike or efforts like that. And so we should be very skeptical of minoritarian democracy and even majoritarian democracy, because majoritarian democracy then says, we can, if just 50% plus one believe in something, now you can have the sort of, what they try to claim is the reason for minoritarian democracy, which is an even worse a form, in my opinion. But they try to claim the tyranny of the majority, but it is real that you can have a sort of tyranny of a majority, in an underwhelming majority, really just a 51%, sort of a 50% plus one majority can have all this power inside of a thing. And we know when you're a minority in a majoritarian system, you feel helpless. Black folks in America, indigenous people, in this country that have been systematically, murdered, killed, enslaved in the case of Black folks. We in immigrants, we as minorities feel sometimes left out of the system, because the reality is, in a white majority society, white people can band together and collectively get together and can overrule the wants and needs of every other minority. And so even in a majoritarian system, I don't think that goes far enough. And that's why I truly advocate for a democratic consensus, and that within democratic, within consensus democracy, consensual democracy, you give essentially veto power to every single person, and you also give power to create proposals, to propose new measures, to every single individual, and it allows the individual to not just be overrun by the majority. It really requires, it's a lengthier process. It's more work, it's more effort, but ultimately what it allows for is to prevent this sort of thing where a simple majority, or even an overwhelming majority, 75% or so of people can simply overrule. Because sometimes, let's be real, sometimes one person out of 100 is actually right, and sometimes what we need is not for the 99 to be able to just simply overrule that one person. If they're right, if that one person is right and is on the right side of history, then I want that one person to be able to be heard and to be able to to prevent bad policy from taking place. And that's really what consensual democracy is all about. And so it's something that I advocate for. It's something that the Dual Power app provides the infrastructure for folks to go out there and to actually provide democratic consent within their organization, because when we don't, you can have folks making unilateral decisions, or even a simple majority sort of banding together and overpowering minorities, women, Black folks, indigenous folks. Their voices should still be heard in these different organizations. And so that's why I think consensual democracy is a model of democracy that more people, one, need to be informed about, know that it exists, know how it works, and then to actually begin to institute that in our organizations that we have control over. I can't really get behind any organization at this stage of my sort of political journey. I can't really support any organization that isn't implementing, or at least trying to implement, something along the lines of democratic consensus building inside of their organization, because it's not enough to just claim to be anti-capitalist and to just say what we're against. We got to go on record saying what we are for, and then we actually have to, we have to walk that walk and not just talk that talk. And that's hard work, but we can't just be, it's hypocritical of us to go out there and tell other people to go and enact democracy where they are, when we're not willing to do it ourselves. And so we have to, part of that process is learning how to do it and actually doing it ourselves. And I think it could be very informative for people if we start to publicize some of those processes, to show what those things look like, make public our meetings and be transparent about that. When we're asking people to support our organizations, support the Radical Democracy Show, we have to start to show and be transparent about how we are going to actually build true democratic consensus into our processes.
Thanks for that explanation. Eric Tolbert, he says, why don't we talk about real people instead of fictional people like Batman, Tony Stark thing? This is ridiculous. Maybe you should seek help, and maybe you should wake up. You know what? We could actually do both. We can do both. Yeah. We can actually talk about the fun things and be a little bit lighthearted, but then we also can talk about the serious things like we've been doing this entire show. So, yeah.
And I think popular culture is a good jumping off point for discussions, because let's be real, sometimes it is daunting to sit there and to listen to news and political commentary. It's heavy stuff. All right. And sometimes to lighten it up a little bit, it is good to bring in things like pop culture. I'm a huge Avatar fan, and Avatar: Last Airbender, Legend of Korra. I love the themes in those shows, and I love to talk about those shows in the context of modern society. Things like communism, anarchism are themes that are raised in those shows that are seemingly, kids shows, these cartoons, but they have real world implications, and it is a nice jumping off point because it's something that people can relate to. So I do think that we can talk about that, but we always talk about things like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who are the modern day Tony Starks of the world, who are the Lex Luthors, absolutely, of the world, that are off doing these space races, because what we know is the reality is that their goal is to just burn up all the resources on this planet and then jump in their spaceships and fly off to another, leaving the rest of us behind to suffer as the world burns behind them. Like, I think the real rapture that's going to happen, because I'm not a very religious person myself personally, but I think the real rapture is going to be them just setting this planet on fire through fossil fuel burning and climate change, and then they all jump in their ships and leave the rest of us behind, and they're going to be seeing themselves as the chosen people. Right now they do it with their sort of gated communities, and these new planetary exploration is just the next level of gated communities. And we got these billionaires that are off doing space races. Jeff Bezos out here thanking his employees, saying, this wouldn't be possible without you, for all the work you've done has made it possible for this, moron to fly off into space. And so, yes, there are real modern, real examples that we can refer to, and we do refer to all the time. And so I agree with James, we can do both. we can walk and chew gum here.
I haven't heard somebody call someone a moron in a long time. And you called Jeff Bezos a moron?
Elon Musk is the worst of the worst. And we saw
Oh
him
my
doing,
gosh.
coups in Bolivia and supporting. He said, we
Yeah.
can coup anyone we want to coup, and that's the real capitalism, just throwing it in your face. And anybody that thinks that Elon Musk is a genius is they themselves a moron, because he did nothing. He's not even an engineer. The dude is just a capitalist, and he came up off of apartheid South Africa, with his father's riches and his family's riches that he inherited. Exactly.
Yeah,
emerald mines. So let's be real about who these people are. They aren't geniuses. They're fucking idiots, and that can tank our economy with, he goes on Joe Rogan and smokes a blunt, and the value of Tesla drops by 20%. And so it's come on, this shit, this whole, it shows how fake, the stock market, how not real those financial services and institutions really are. And I think they do serve as good examples, but we can also use pop culture to reference those things and that's what, shows like Nerdolitics on Fred Hampton Leftists are so good about. Yep, shout out to Nerdolitics. So I love that they did a whole show on Avatar: The Last Airbender. RJ was dropping all kinds of knowledge on there, so shout out to RJ for that one too. And you can really have fun while still talking about real world things. So
and one day when we start to grow our Twitch channel, I'm going to go on Nerdolitics and I'm going to talk about the politics of Final Fantasy VII, because that's one of my favorite games, and I'm going to be talking about it because it literally reflects real life. And so that's a great thing. I want to go into something else. It's going to be kind of depressing. I'm going to prepare you for that. I'm not sure if you saw this video yet. I did share it on Facebook. I'm sorry, not Facebook, Twitter. Oh, same thing. But I want to get your reactions to this, and we're kind of switching gears here. So, oh boy, this is gonna be a doozy. It's nothing. It's nothing triggering for anybody. Is I don't have to put necessarily a warning, but it's still depressing, and it makes you hate capitalism even more. So I'm going to, like Sabby says, share my screen. She sings it whenever she does, which is
that's awesome. I didn't catch that. Yeah,
I
that's
know. I try to be more and
awesome.
more like Sabby every day.
Yep. We should all.
She's
We should
my
all strive to be
hero.
more like Sabby. Damn it. Afeni's one of my favorites too. I love Afeni.
Afeni is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible. Incredible.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself because I talk too much anyway. Here you go.
Authority, and you think you some shit, and it's people out here ain't got no motherfucking food. How dare How dare both of y'all say some shit like that? There's people out here ain't got no fucking food, but y'all don't eat the motherfucking garbage. How fucking dare you? I ain't eat all day. You gonna take the motherfucking like beef for fucking stupid authority, and you think you some shit, and there's people out here ain't got no motherfucking food. How dare you?
Yo, whoa! I have not seen that shit. That is some fuck shit. I'm sorry. Sorry for swearing. I'm sorry. I don't want to get you demonetizing that. That is disgusting. Disgusting. Yeah. I covered a story back, a while back, and there was I think it was early on in the pandemic or something, and some grocery store department had thrown out into their dumpster, a big dumpster, a bunch of frozen meats and all these other things, all this other kind of canned food and all kinds of stuff that was one day past its expiration or whatever the hell is, and people had come and were trying to, like, you know, they had heard, oh, this company had dumped all these, you know, these groceries, and so they went there and they tried. I think it might have been a Kroger's, you know, fuck Kroger's anyway, so they're terrible anyway, so I don't even care if I accidentally name them and it's not them. They're terrible, but they you know, they call police on these people and have police, you know, out there protecting a dumpster that was, you know, it was just good food that people could still use, and they it was gross to see. This is like next level stuff. We really out here like literally throwing food that looks like perfectly good food. Them all that other stuff, the watermelons, what the fuck, they were enclosed watermelons. You ain't even split that thing open. That shit had to still be good. Can you please tell me the context of this? Because that is
so I'm gonna read it to you, the tweet. It's actually a thread of tweets. This is from Vendor Power, Street Vendor Project. In the middle of a pandemic in the Bronx where 1 in 5 don't have enough to eat, NYPD News and NYC Sanitation trashed a business destroying produce in a food desert. This family is just trying to run a small business and sell affordable fruits and veggies. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is beyond wrong. It also says the vendor is clearly beloved member of her community. Neighbors crowded around her, calling for the abuse to stop. Thousands of dollars worth of oranges, tomatoes, and other fruits trashed, taken from an immigrant woman entrepreneur already hard hit by the pandemic.
No, see, this is where direct action is so damn critical. And it's great. I'm glad that people took out their phones and recorded, but we have to start to ready ourselves to take a step beyond that. Look at how many cops there were. We need that's not enough to stop. When you get enough people, masses of people out there, you lock arms, you surround that goddamn truck, and you literally use your bodies to block them from doing anything like this. Like, this is where direct action is so critical, because if you have to arrest me and every single person out there with me standing in solidarity. If I ever saw some shit like that going down, you got to put yourself on the line to protect food, families, that small business. Like, that's who we need to be out there in solidarity with. Lock arms, surround that damn garbage truck. They don't, you know, they got to move it. You surround every angle of it except for the front. You can get the fuck, you can drive yourself right the fuck out of here. And that's the only direction you can head in. And you keep surrounding, you keep putting more and more bodies in front of this. While these punk ass cops stand on the sideline. This is what the fuck cops is out here doing. Like, this is what we think we need to pay these pieces of shit for. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's only 2 of them against how many of y'all in that community? Like, they can call as many cops as they want, man. Y'all just we got to start getting ready, mentally preparing ourselves for when this shit happens. That recording, yes, good. One person record to document, to make sure that we have protections when we go to court and all that sort of stuff, to show that people weren't being violent, that they were having violence enacted against them. But we gotta be willing and ready and willing to put ourselves on the front lines. The same way that I've made up my mind. If I ever see a cop brutalizing anybody, I do not give a fuck. I am ready to step in and put myself, my body on the line. I do not care. I will be a martyr for that damn cause, because like Cornel West said, like, you know, he is not a pacifist. I am not a pacifist. And I've reached the breaking point. I will not sit idly by and record. It's just not enough at this stage. If I see somebody kneeling on the neck of any person, black, brown, or whatever the fuck, if I see a cop kneeling on their neck, it's no longer enough to be, you know, to just pull out your phone and record. Kudos to the people that do that to even get us to this point where we can prepare ourselves for that. So I'm not trying to shit on the people that do that. I'm just saying, me personally, it's time to escalate those tactics. It's time to step up and put our bodies on the line, because it's us. It could be, you know, it's us now, but today it's someone else. Tomorrow it could be us. And we got to think, you know, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I would want people to not just stand by and yell at cops, telling them to get off of my neck. But I am literally about going and tackling a fucking cop if I have to. If I see them kneeling on the neck of a human being or putting them in a fucking chokehold, I'm done. I'll get shot. I'll get murdered. I don't give a fuck. Don't tell me that, oh, I might be endangering more people. You know what? The danger is, people going hungry right here. Like people suffering. There's people suffering out here. And so, no. I kudos to anyone who recorded, but we got to take it a step further.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric Talbert, for the super chat. We need to lower the cost of living in this country by 30 years if we're not going to increase the wages of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the step in the right direction. Um, it's just look, and I haven't even really gave my actual thoughts on this. Um, as somebody who grew up food insecure, and as somebody who grew up, um, hang on, I'm going to expand this. Um, as somebody who grew up in that type of environment where it was hard on my mom, to try to feed us. I mean, my mom can tell you that there was one. She always brings this up. There was one day where all we had to eat was oatmeal and neck bones. That's all we had. And as somebody who grew up in that type of way, to me, food is a human right because it means
Absolutely.
that you can't live without it. Um, to see this food, healthy food, it's not even just junk food; it's healthy food being thrown away into a back of a trash, a garbage truck. If I were one of those workers, I would have been like, "Fuck no."
Yeah.
I refuse to put in that in the back of this truck. I would have refused.
Yes.
And then
Who
my
are
thing
these
is,
work?
and
Yes.
my thing is like, and the problem is these workers, they're probably thinking the same thing, but then they're at an impasse. But I gotta feed my family. But I need this job. I can't do, and so the problem is that they feel like their hands are tied. The people who are recording, they feel like their hands are tied because if they try to stop them, then they get arrested. They have to work tomorrow or later in the day. So they feel like they can't do anything. So the only way is that if a mass of people actually just did it all at once. And it's like then, something can be done. But this system puts such a chokehold on you that you feel like even when you see injustice being done, you feel like you have to just allow it to happen because if not, then it will get worse for you. And that's where it hurts to see. And the fact that I know people that, have been hungry and are, don't have very much means. I literally only get 16 bucks a month in food stamps. 16. And I need food stamps, right?
Yep. I'm currently on
I'm
food
on food
stamps, SNAP
stamps.
benefits. I'm on
Let's
food
be
stamps
real.
right now. Yep.
I,
We got to
James
destigmatize this
Fauntleroy,
shit.
on
Yep.
on FHL, I'm on food stamps right
Yep.
now.
Same.
Yes, right here, right
Same.
now. Okay? And so that could have helped me.
Mm-hmm.
And all because of some arbitrary law. Oh, you guys can't be street vendors. We have a law against street vendors.
Fuck that.
What?
Yeah.
You telling me that you guys like look, the city could have even did this. Okay, you're not supposed to be selling food at the corner because we have a street vending law. We're going to take this food and we're going to give it ourselves as the city. We're going to give it to our homeless shelters. Even if they did that, even if they did that, and still, the lady who was selling the fruit and vegetables, they basically stole her livelihood.
Yep. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, so number one, you're stealing the livelihood of this lady because this may be all the money that she gets to make in that month. So what is she going to do? Number one. Number two, you're taking away the ability of hundreds of people being fed. And why? Because you don't because the other people who sell food around for a much larger price don't like that they're
Yep.
selling it
Yep.
cheaper.
Yep.
I thought that was called competition.
Yeah. And mind you, this is in the middle of a food desert, which means there really is nobody selling this kind of food. You in the middle of a food desert means you're not getting
Yeah,
things like, nutritious vegetables and fruits,
yeah,
sold anywhere in the area. So that means that they
yeah,
have no access to this kind of nutritious food anywhere within
yeah.
within within reasonable range of this community. And so here you have somebody providing a much needed service right here. And this is the reaction. This is the capitalist reaction to that. And this is
Yeah,
the system that we think we can allow to continue forward. Absolutely not.
yeah. And my thing is like, yo, screw Little Debbie, screw Nabisco, screw Frito Lay. Give me that. Give me that stuff.
Yes, yes.
Like, right? Because the thing is that I'll actually be more productive and be a healthier person with that. But yeah, you guys just want to give it away. You guys just want to throw it away, all because she doesn't have a business license.
I lived
It's
in
just like, come
Jamaica,
on.
in rural Jamaica, on a farm where we grew all of our food. We only bought rice, flour, sugar, and even for sugar, we would sometimes juice cane because we had a ton of sugar cane. And I grew, I lived there. I lived there for about 3 years of my life, in high
Yeah.
school.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, the air that I was breathing in that area was cleaner, was fresher. You literally step off the plane in Jamaica, even in the city of Jamaica, and you can immediately smell the difference in the air quality. Once you get to the rural areas, it's even more, extreme, the difference between what we're used to breathing in most of these urban centers
Hmm.
in America. But the fruits, the vegetables that I ate, the food that I ate, in Jamaica, I mean, I was planting most of what I was eating as a farmer. My family's Rastafarian, so we don't really raise animals. We were doing all fruit and vegetable farming,
Hmm.
and we were, where everything in your pot came from. You know exactly where. The hill that cassava was dug up from, or yuca if you're in a Spanish speaking country. The hill that was dug up from, that yam, that coconut. I've planted a coconut tree and drank a coconut off of a tree that I planted before. It's an incredible feeling, to be able to do that. And if you've ever been in that situation, that food that you eat is so much healthier. My dad is right now, he is a Rastafarian. He smokes weed every single day, has smoked weed since he was born and raised Christian, but he started, he turned Rastafarian when he was about 18 years old. And ever since age, 16, 17, he's been smoking weed every single day. My dad is now 80 years old. He actually turned, I think, 81 in June.
What?
So my dad is 81 years old. I am not exaggerating when I say that my dad is healthier than I am right now. He can run further, do more work than I can. He's got a better body than I do, like muscular and everything. Like this dude, minus the injury that he got on his foot from stepping on a rusty nail. This man is healthier in every way, shape, and form than I am at age 34 right now as an American citizen living in this concrete jungle we live in. And so what kind of sustenance these kinds of fresh fruits and vegetables provide. And so to take that away from people is literally, this is an act of violence against the people in this community, because it leads to worse health outcomes, contributes to things like obesity, things like that. So this is so triggering for me to just be watching this shit. It's painful to watch. It really is. Thank you for sharing this. This is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, in this thread, they were talking about it's supposed to be today, and it happened a little over 2 hours ago. For standing up for street vendors. Street vendors are a vital part of our community and the small business. Legalize street #legalize street vending. Today is the 26th. It's supposed to be at 12, so that was a little over a couple hours ago. And White Plains Road and Pelham Parkway. And so they are, standing in solidarity with street vendors that
Good.
are doing what they can. And so if you guys are in New York, try stopping by just to give them some
Yep.
support.
Yep.
And look, um, thank you for telling me about smoking weed every day because I may
Yes.
start partaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Do a
Yep.
little
Same.
something.
Same. Same.
Same. Sorry, you guys might singing it. But yeah, so we get to a point where we we need to this hurts. It just hurts. And let's be real. I'm a fluffy guy. Y'all know I like to eat. So you know how much this hurts me. All right? I don't mean to make light of the situation, but sometimes you got to laugh to keep yourself from crying.
Yep.
Um but I've been food insecure in my life. Um and I am just looking at the people who go through and all the fruit and vegetables that she doesn't sell, she probably does give it away, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I am tired of this. This is one of the reasons why, and um, a lot of people are like, so what are solutions? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to direct you guys to go to some of the videos in revolutionary jargon in the Fred Hampton Leftist Network. RJ has actually interviewed farmers
Hmm.
and people who give suggestions on community farming and even like getting like 5 gallon buckets and planting like tomatoes in those 5 gallon buckets and things like
Yes.
that,
Yes.
and then sharing with your neighbors so that you guys, number one, don't have to use money to buy food. Number two, you're actually getting some food that's healthy that hasn't been influenced by pesticides and things like that. You guys can grow your own heirlooms because how many people actually use heirloom tomatoes anymore? Nobody does. Tomatoes aren't all red, by the way. Um, and so,
And you can do
yeah,
this in with very little space. You don't need a ton of space to do
yeah,
this. You can
yeah.
grow a lot of just like, mint and
Ooh,
thyme
mint.
and
Yeah,
basil, lots of
yeah,
herbs. You can grow them right in your window inside of your home. If you have an
yeah.
apartment or anything like that, you
Oh,
can grow them there. I planted, strawberries, tomatoes,
well, I'm
all
coming.
kinds of herbs,
Well, I'm
cilantro.
coming over your house.
I even planted on my friend's deck in Revere in Massachusetts, which is like, this is like a city,
Mhm.
and out on his deck, we planted a little orange tree and a little lime tree and just some really big, pots or whatever. And he grew limes, got to eat an orange and some limes off of a tree that was, planted in on the deck of his apartment. So,
Yeah.
these are things that we can do. We got to start to get towards. This is part of local sustainability. So yeah,
Yeah.
I strongly encourage people to look up, how to do
Okay.
that.
By the way, for any of you, and I'm not sure if you guys know this, but if you guys buy things like scallions or uh, oh my god, what's it called? Celery, things like that. Keep the roots,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then you submerge those in water,
Yep.
and they can grow back. So you
Yep.
guys only have to buy it once.
Yep.
Also, if you guys plan on doing some growing of some things, do you guys know anybody who's disabled who is unable to do that at their homes?
Yep.
And if you can give just a little, each one
Yep.
of you, to that person who may be disabled, infirm, or elderly, because mutual aid doesn't just involve money.
Yeah.
So just
Mint is essentially a weed. If you grow mint, if you throw some mint, in the dirt, it will grow unruly. You'll have too much to handle. It happened to us, and we got enough that you can just give it away. Just you'll have so much that you can't use it all. I promise you. And you can just give it away to your coworkers, to your friends, to your neighbors.
hmm
I promise you. You ask somebody. Do you want to try some fresh mint? It makes an amazing tea that has, healing properties. It's great
Yes.
for, settling digestive issues, even, sore throats. So tea can be, it has healing properties. And so we can be, growing our own medicines essentially, as well as our own foods.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't have to necessarily you have a weed grow farm. You can have a mint grow farm. You know,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
you know,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
and
And you
then
can
you
even
can.
grow mint around your weed, like it will keep the roots of your weed cooler, and can allow for, for less watering to need to take place. So, you can grow mint around, you can grow things like beans around, your weed and stuff. So, yeah, those tactics are a lot of people that there's tactics that they'll do in Jamaica and around the world, where they'll grow essentially all the food for a single pot in one area, like potatoes, corn, and beans, all in one section of land where literally the beans are growing up the corn stalks. You just got to make sure that it's not so suppressive that it's holding them back or holding them down. But these things can be grown in conjunction right alongside one another, and can actually
Yeah,
be beneficial to the growth of the other fruits, vegetables around them.
yeah, yeah. And so the thing is that we want to make it so that they can't necessarily take your food away from you.
Yeah.
A lot of people, like for instance, um, this lady that was doing food, vending outside of her, in her community. They'll come up with any type of excuse to take it away. But if you're able to just do it at home and then share with your neighbors, I mean, and that way, I think that is a good idea. Somebody in the chat asked me for the link. I'm actually looking for the links right now. Um, and he talks about different different ways of planting gardens and whatnot. I'm looking right now. He has a really good one. Hang on. Um, I just passed it. I hate when I pass things. Yeah. I think this may be it. Let me check in the description just to make sure. Oh, yep, got it. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the chat for whoever was asking, just so that you guys can see it. And I'm gonna be real. This is one of the reasons why I love having Kamali on. Y'all just don't know. This dude is brilliant. And look,
Thank you, comrade.
anybody
So are
who's
you.
watching who watches FHL, I recommend that you guys not only, go and subscribe to the Radical Democracy Show, but have Kamali on
Thank you.
and just let him go, because this guy is like, if you took a dictionary and it's like pouring all the contents out of the dictionary, and next thing you know, basically that's Kamali, and it's just great, and you learn shit. You learn shit. So that's one of the things that I love about having.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Right back at you, comrade. Honestly, like I said, that's why no pun intended, but that's why I said our conversations are always fruitful whenever we talk, because I think that there's just a lot of knowledge, on your part, and a lot of all the Fred Hampton left hosts, just a dearth of knowledge, and so. Yeah, we should really be checking out and try to gather our information from as many sources as possible. And so I'm, just trying my best to do my honest best to contribute to that wealth of knowledge, really.
yeah. But yeah, that video was disturbing to me earlier, and it's not just food, right? If you guys get a chance, also give a look at the YouTube channel Second Thought. He is a leftist. He's a socialist like us. He makes great quality videos, and he actually put out a video about capitalism. And I didn't realize, but Amazon and in one European country, Amazon was literally trashing all of its brand new products that it didn't sell just so that they can keep the prices up. And I'm talking about 4K LED TVs, brand new clothing, brand new electronics, like PS5s and PS4s when they were still brand new in the box. Like if they don't sell them, what do? They trash them.
Yep.
You have car companies like Toyota, Hyundai, Ford, GM. These when they all the cars that they don't sell, they literally put them in a junkyard and they trash them. They crush
Yep.
them because they want to keep the prices up.
Yep. False scarcity.
That's capitalism.
Yep. Yep. If you don't believe us, Google planned obsolescence. You know, they do this, they build the obsolescence into the technology so that, you know, that's why they always, you hear people say they don't make them like they used to. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Because eventually they figured out that, you know, through planned, and somebody might have said it right before me too. Al Gobis here said planned obsolescence. Exactly. That's,
Yeah.
you know, great minds think alike there. Like, you know, this is what they do. They build it into, you know, into this technology because they want you to buy more of them. You know, they know that if they can keep you coming back for more, that's beneficial to them. That's why they don't really, there's not a lot of money in curing diseases. There's a lot of money in treating it. But they don't want to cure it. That's why you don't see them, you know, rushing towards you know, cures for cancer or, you know, HIV, and you know, they want to be able to put you on something for the rest of your life. That is a lot more profitable. That's why even with the COVID vaccines, we see them, you know, willing, you know, all these like attempts towards booster shots and things like that. Like I'm vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. If they tell me that I'm going to need a booster, I'm gonna get a damn booster. But you know, we should have structured, you know, we don't need private pharmaceutical companies, period. They should not exist. There should be no profit motive inside of our healthcare system. There's no space for that in our healthcare system, because all of, you know, they were funded to the tune of billions of dollars for research and development at the beginning of the pandemic in order to accelerate the course for developing these vaccines. Moderna, which is the company that I got my vaccine from, their sort of RNA research was taken from public research. Oftentimes, all of the research being done, the vast majority of the research being done for things like these vaccines are done at public institutions. And then, you know, private, you know, pharmaceutical companies are able to then swoop in and take that public research and then use it to develop privately held vaccines, privately held patents. That's why one of the big issues with COVID vaccines, in what you see, is that in the global South, they're not being distributed. Places like Haiti, places all throughout the global South are not receiving the COVID vaccine. And it's because the US and these other corporations refuse to let go of their patents.
Well. I mean, look, it's not just with, you know, anything medical, but also, you know, look at look at our phones, things like that. I mean, a lot of the technology was developed by our schools, and then they, privatize, the patents and things like that. Robin Ryan, I love what you said. It says kind of put supply and demand on its ass, doesn't it? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Because if supply and demand actually truly worked, then they would need to trash the supply in order to create demand. It's
Yes. Yeah.
manufactured demand.
Yes.
So when you tell people this, it's like, well, they need to keep the prices up, and I'm like, yeah, but that means that we got a troll in the chat.
Yeah, we'll get rid of those.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my people are taking care of it. Oh yeah.
Nice.
See, that's what I love about y'all. Y'all keep everything on point. I love y'all. But yeah, so I mean, the whole issue is, well, what Beverly said: free market capitalism is a lie.
Yeah.
Um,
I had a great guest on my show, actually, just quickly on the topic of food, you know, food security. I had a great guest on my show. Her name is a doctor now, Dr. Tamanisha John. Put some respect on it. And she came on to talk about a whole host of things. But one thing that she really got into was the fact that this sort of paradox where a lot of the countries that are producing food, because the reality is that America is not a major producer of a lot of the foods that we eat. We import a lot of those foods, right?
Yes,
And
we do.
there's this wild thing that happens where a lot of the countries that are producing the food for the rest of the world are unable to afford the foods that end up being produced through that. So a lot of them, they'll be producing the sugar that goes into these, like, like things, something like soda pop, like some soda, like some Pepsi or something like that. And the cost of something like a can of Pepsi is literally like 15 to 20% of the pay for the monthly pay for a doctor in those countries, right? So she told the story of her aunt who's a doctor, and she could essentially afford 6 cans of Coke on her salary, even though they are I believe it was Guyana, and they are a major producer of, they export sugar cane and sugar through there. They still, a lot of the people that are producing the food for the rest of the world are unable to afford the food that it ends up being, created out of it. And so because they then export it out, to other, to other countries, because of the need to sort of like, accrue money and to have money in their economy. And so it's a really gross paradox that happens within the food industry, where the people that are producing the food are unable to afford the food that gets produced. And this is why we just got to go to a system of growing our own food. My dad has never worked inside of the capitalist. He's never been employed by anyone. He just grows his own food. Grow your own food, share it with your neighbors. And that's the real model for sustainability, is doing it ourselves.
Yeah. Wow, man, it's crazy. I'm going to the chat just a little bit. We got to let a couple minutes left.
Yep.
And also, now that I think about it, I also want to give shout outs to everybody that's watching on Rockfin.
Awesome.
I know OTR Trucker. He was talking about the general strike. He's basically talking about getting a broad coalition of truckers, and he's given us actually a little bit of education.
Shout out OTR Trucker.
I'm not sure if OTR Trucker, if OTR Trucker is a lady, male, or non-binary, but OTR Truckers asked the question: does anybody have information of a general strike action in the Denver area? So if anybody, if especially if you're on Rockfin, please give that information to OTR Truckers. And they also said only those local drivers are able to strike. Long haul truckers are not allowed to organize. Yep. That is extremely interesting. So this is like, if you guys know of truckers that are long haul truckers, then try to talk to them about being able to exercise their ability to be able to strike if they can.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, it's illegal for public employees to strike, but we had public school teachers go on strike, because sometimes you gotta go against the system, and you gotta go right up against it. And I think trucking is a prime area for striking, because I think that there's two things. One, trucking is one of the it is the most popular job in, I believe, a majority of states in the country, I believe. But in a wide swath of states in the country, trucking is the number one job in that state. And two, so it's there's a lot of people doing it. One, two, you have I just lost my train of thought on two is the fact that trucking is one of the prime industries that are being targeted for automation. So you got people trying to, all these like driverless cars. One of the big things that they plan to do with that is driverless trucking, because they say, they already put these people through ridiculous hours that they have to work and stay up late at night, and it leads to all kinds of accidents because they're forcing these people into really horrible working conditions. But the truckers right now, this is their moment where they have some power to exercise before they replace you with robots. So they're coming after y'all, and now's the time to organize, whether it's allowed or legal or not. The teachers, when they went on strike in Massachusetts, ultimately the state did nothing to retaliate against them because they know it doesn't look good when you try to retaliate against workers. So especially for a public institution. So as illegal as it might be, yes, try to radicalize anyone that that might be a long haul trucker, and let them know it's now or never. They're coming after your jobs one way or another. This is the time. Now's the time. Check out octoberstrike.com. There's rallies, there's efforts, in every state around the country. So definitely check that out.
Yeah. Also, Alexandra M. and Rockfin, she was talking about how she was on all forms of public assistance and it was substandard then as it
Yes.
is now.
Yep.
And she says, as a nurse, she stands in solidarity with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
James and I talked about that yesterday. Just the way that they make you prove your poverty over and over, and how demoralizing and
I got
dehumanizing it is.
stories.
Yeah.
I got some stories. And they they live, we sleep. Thank you for the tip of $2 on Rockfin.
Thank you.
They live, we sleep says, thank you for another great show, JB. Much love to you and Kamali. And yes,
Thank
it
you.
is time for people to start learning to grow food here in Seattle.
Yes.
My little V clan and I are doing just that. My daughter is
Awesome.
growing mushrooms. I
Awesome.
love
Congratulations.
fungus.
Love it.
I
Love it.
love
Love it. Love it.
fungus. Thank you so much. They live.
I got
sleep.
some magic mushrooms in my drawer right here, right now. So I love mushrooms as well.
Oh,
but special kind.
Okay. Yes, Choi C, we definitely have the hottest boys and girls here. As you see, two hot boys watching you right now. Going back to the chat on here.
Great conversations in the chat today, by the way. I really enjoyed reading through. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, amazing conversations. And I just want to say this. We have so much to look forward to. Look, we have to be hopeful of the future, and we need that hope to fuel us in our whatever type of activism we do, whenever if we can't get out in the street, or if we can't get out in the street, from when we're talking to people online, whether we're making signs, whether we're calling different people, whether we're getting people together in order to grow food or take care of somebody's kids or do some type of mutual aid. um we have so much to look forward to, because we will make changes. um it's just we all are going to be ones who influence that change. And I know a lot of us feel kind of hopeless right now because of the way things are going, because it's capitalism is on its last legs,
Yeah.
and it's putting in all its effort in order to try to keep itself alive. And right now, we actually are watching capitalism fall right now. But for us, it's now we just got to give it that violent push. Just
Yeah.
all band together and just shove it out of existence.
Yeah.
Because it's been something that has been oppressing us for too long. Like, for instance, Kamali and I, the reason why our ancestors are on this side of the globe is because of capitalism originally.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real, right? I mean, if it weren't for capitalism, I'd probably be some snazzy dressed dude, and who knows, I could be in Gambia or Zimbabwe or whatever, and I could be, a farmer somewhere, just chilling out, and being all peaceful and happy, probably, I don't know, hugging a giraffe or something. But now
Giraffes are
instead, I have to
mean
live in
sometimes, but
yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't mind riding a giraffe anyway. But it's just hang in there. And like I said in the beginning, you're not alone. And we care deeply about you, even though we don't know you, because you're a human being and you matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are your last thoughts, and what do you have coming up, Kahmali?
Just thank you for having me on. Like I said, I've been away from the channel for a while, so I'm planning to get back on just to do a little quick channel update soon. And just make that announcement, do a quick channel update. And then, coming up next is really just trying to, get some lucrative work so that I can get the bills paid. And then hopefully I'll be back with a regular. I'm hoping to do a 1 show a week on weekends. I haven't chosen an exact time, but it will, it will almost certainly be weekends, Saturday, Sunday, sometime in the afternoon or evening. And so keep an eye out for that. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, Radical Democracy on YouTube. And if you want to support, you can support us on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/radical democracy. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/radical democracy. And, any kind of funding goes towards just keeping the hope alive to continue doing the show. And we'll go towards building a democratic, news and political commentary channel.
Definitely. Also, stay tuned on FHL for the Killjoy Guide with Meg. She will be on later this evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to be there for that. Also, let me see. What do I have for next week? I don't know what the hell I got for next week. I'm flying by the seat of my pants today. And that's okay too, because things will fall into place eventually.
Yeah.
Be sure to stay tuned for the roundtable on FHL on Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Quaker Socialist, I appreciate that. Though it's not the full tag handle, it's my entire name, uh, as right here. Um, it's not
Nice.
yeah, it doesn't stop at the T.
Awesome.
I don't know. I don't know who people are sending money to right now. But yeah, and you guys in the chat, thank you so much. You guys made it lively, and you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the super chats and the tips on Rockfin. And I went a little over, but that's okay too. And please continue to give Kamali Rose a follow and subscribe to the Radical Democracy Show because it is
Absolutely.
great content. And like always, I'll see you in the next one.
All right.